How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my Week 14 score predictions video. I'm going to go through all the NFL games taking place this week and, well, mainly weekend, and break down my score predictions, talk about how I think the games are going to go, takeaways, all that good stuff. So I have my full score predictions for all the games instead of like I've mostly been doing this season, releasing just my Thursday night game score prediction, then the rest of the games is a separate video the following day or day after Saturday. But I have all the games here. So, first game, speaking of Thursday night football, we get the Cowboys, we get the Lions. So, this is a really difficult game to pick. The Lions are favored by 3.5. I'm a bit surprised the line is that high. I thought it would be a borderline pick'em game spread wise, like a point and a half, 2 points maybe. So Amon Ra, let me double check if he is like 100% confirmed out for this game. I'm almost positive he's not playing, but let's see. Of course, I can't just get a straight answer. I'm just gonna have to scroll to the bottom of this article, I'm sure. Yep. Exited the game. Um, Not made a decision. Wisdom is questionable. Game time decision. Well, honestly, regardless, I'm gonna I'm gonna go with the Cowboys regardless. Obviously, if St. Brown's out, I'll feel a bit better with that prediction. But even with St. Brown, I'm gonna pick Dallas here. The Cowboys, to me, are just the better football team at the moment. They're playing better on both sides of the ball. The offense has been electric for most of the season. The Lions offense, week one against Green Bay, it wasn't too great, obviously. Then they got hot. They looked even better, and they were playing better statistically than they were with Ben Johnson, with John Morton calling the plays. And then they kind of hit a bit of a cold streak. And Dan Campbell, since he's taken over play calling, it was great against the Commanders, obviously. But the Commanders were really struggling. And then that was the game that Dan Quinn, after that game, took over the defensive play calling duties from Joe Witt. And it hasn't been great since then, but it's not awful by any means. It's actually been one of the better offenses in the league, but it still feels like even though they're putting up a bunch of points and yards, they're not the same offense they were the past couple seasons. Their defense has really been struggling. A lot of injuries in the secondary. I think that's going to be why they lose the game. Dallas, I think, is going to feast with Pickens and Lamb, with all the injured guys that the Lions have been dealing with. And the Dallas defense has been playing a lot better. So they're playing better. They're red hot right now. I'm going to pick them. Must win for both teams. And the Lions, usually after they lose, bounce back. But to me, it just doesn't feel like the same Lions team at the moment. They very well could win the game. I think it's going to be a borderline shootout. So if their defense can, just play a bit better than I'm expecting, I could very easily see the Lions getting a lot more offense than only 24 points, especially if St. Brown plays. Gibbs could really hurt the Cowboys in this game. So if he has a big game, that could be a key for the Lions winning. But yeah, I'm going to go with Dallas here. Dallas hasn't been as good on the road as they have been at home as well. Like that's the case for most teams. But that's another thing favoring Detroit. Wouldn't be surprised if Detroit wins. I think it's a borderline picking game. Tough one here, but I'm going to go with Dallas 27-24. I think the firepower and the injuries that the Lions are dealing with are going to be too much for them in this one. Cincy and Buffalo. So, this is an interesting game. Looking at this game a couple weeks ago, everyone kind of just by default would pick Buffalo. I'm picking Buffalo here, 30-27. I think this is going to be a shootout. Bills are favored by 5.5. It's getting more interesting though. The Bills have not been playing too great. They kind of all season, even when they were 4-0, something which is not there. It felt like, at least to me, and that was kind of the narrative I was seeing a lot with a lot of people as well. Just something was not there with the Bills all season. It's been showing in recent weeks. Now, the Bengals, they're coming off a great win against the Ravens. Thursday Night Football last week. Their defense played easily its best game of the season. They look phenomenal now. It was against the Ravens offense, which is borderline been struggling since Lamar's come back, even though they've been winning. And their offense, they put up 30 plus. They got held to a lot of field goals, really struggled in the red zone. So I think they're going to work on that a lot going into this game. And another thing supporting the Bengals case, if they win out, they have a decent chance at somehow stealing the division. And we saw them get hot. They were 4-8 last year. They won their last five. They were 3-8, so they're going to have to win their last six to finish 9-8. Obviously, it leaves them pretty much no room for margin of error. In terms of win losses, literally no room. And they're going to have to, play extremely good football on both sides of the ball, most likely to win out. Um, but another thing supporting the Bengals case is the past couple times they've matched up with the Bills, they have gotten the better of Buffalo. I remember the 22 season, this was the divisional round matchup in Buffalo, and a lot of people picking the Bills. The Bills are favored. I felt pretty confident with the Bengals in that game. The Bengals killed them. They blew them out. The Bills looked awful. And then in the 23 season, or actually, sorry, no, that was okay. So no, sorry, they played in the division round in the 22 season. The regular season matchup, that was the whole Damar Hamlin situation. The Bengals, I think, were going to steamroll the Bills that game, the way the game was going. And then they did steamroll them in the playoffs. So there's that to note in mind. I know it was a couple of years ago. Obviously, the teams are different, but still something to note in mind. And the Bills' defense has not been good this season, besides a couple games. And the Bengals' offense, we know that they got a lot of firepower. Joe Burrow back. If the defense can play nearly as good as it did last week, they're going to win the game, I think. However, I'm picking the Bills here at home. Kind of a must win for them. They really, I mean, I think we're going to win the division, obviously, the Patriots. So they need to start stacking up some wins to try to get the 5 seed, get the highest seed possible they can without winning the AFC East. They know that every game's crucial for them, not with, what are they, 7-4. So they, not, it's still a decent record, but just not the Bills we're used to, it feels like. But they know every game's crucial. They're at home. I think their defense makes a couple more key stops, there we go, than the Cincy defense in this game. So I think that's going to be a big reason why the Bills win. That's why I'm picking them here. Again, I think it's going to be shootout. I think the Bengals defense is, I don't think it's going to play nearly as good as it did last week, but I think it's going to play, better than we're used to. Ever since the bye, they played better defense. The way they've been playing the past couple of weeks, I am feeling better about how my Patriots kind of played a sloppy game against them offensively and won. But yeah, Buffalo, I think their defense is going to get a stop more than the Bengals. I think this may be similar to the Tampa game a couple weeks ago, kind of a sloppy offensive outing for the Bills. Maybe the Bengals get some turnovers and say, well, what did this Bengals defense do? They're playing great. But then the Bills have a couple drives where they torch them, like make it look easy. So borderline shootout. I think the Bills defense is going to get some more stops than the Cincy defense. So I'll pick them here. I would not be shocked if the Bengals won, though. A lot of logics I outlined earlier suggest they get a chance in this game. I would not bet the spread in this one because I think it can go either way. But yeah, I think Buffalo could win comfortably. I think it'll be close. So I'll pick them 30-27. Would certainly stay away from the spread there. But speaking of spreads, I didn't mention it in Thursday game tonight. Dallas plus 3.5 is a pretty good spread. I'm probably going to bet that myself because I think they're going to win. And if they do lose, I think they'll be within that spread. Oh, sorry, remind me. I forgot to double check if I screwed my borders up before I recorded this, but that's okay. Saints Bucks, yep, going with the Bucks here. They're massive favorites, 8.5-point favorites. I mean, they've not been playing very good football, but neither of the Saints. They played very sloppy last week against the Dolphins, and they still had a chance in that game to win. Especially when they got the onside. I thought they seriously may steal the game against Miami. So yeah, they nearly won that game with how sloppy they were. Again, Tampa has not been playing great ball, but at home, easily the better team, even with how sloppy and how not great they've been playing. The Saints defense has been playing solid, so I don't think Tampa's offense goes off in this game. I think it's, relatively kind of close, but Tampa's offense, I think it's going to be too much. I think Tampa's defense plays a good game. Shuck has been okay with the Saints so far, in my opinion, but I don't simply, I don't see how the Saints and Shock can outscore Baker in the Bucs here, especially at home for Tampa. So the first time these teams matched up, Tampa won. They put up 23 points, and their defense played great. They were sloppy in that game offensively. They got stopped at the goal line 4 straight times from the 1 yard line. I don't think they're going to play as sloppy in this one. Could see them blowing out, winning by more than 10. Would I have them winning here in that margin? But I'll say 26-16 for the Bucs. Must-win game with the Panthers right up their heels, tied record-wise for the division. So, or well, they had the same amount of wins. The Panthers played an extra game, but they're on the bye this week. But New Orleans, if they somehow pull off the upset, I think it's just going to have to be a weird game. Maybe some special teams. The offense. I mean, Tampa's defense has not been playing great, so maybe some big explosive plays from the Saints could help them here. The defense, I do think, will play decent. So the Bucs offense is as sloppy as it was the first time these teams matched up. Maybe that's on New Orleans. Another key for them to seal this one. But I'll go with Tampa 26-16. I'd probably stay away from that spread. A bit too big for me to bet, especially with how the Bucs have been playing lately. Seattle and Atlanta. Yep, going with Seattle here. I think their defense, per usual, like most games this season, is going to play fantastic. Falcons offense, even though they put up a decent amount of points and yardage against the Jets, especially Bijan, I think he nearly had 200 scrimmage yards, like 190 something, somewhere around there, I think. I do not think they've been playing well since Kirk has came back, and they're going up against this juggernaut Seattle defense that plays better on the road. The team does in general, it feels like. And yeah, I just don't think they're going to have too much success offensively in this game. Maybe Bijan, if they do win, maybe Bijan can, have another explosive game, but I think passing wise, that's going to be extremely limited. I think Bijan's going to have to go off. I do think the Falcons defense is going to keep it relatively close. I think it'll be a sort of low scoring game for the most part. Falcons defense will keep it close. Seattle's offense hasn't been too great the past couple games. More so, Darnold hasn't been, looking like the MVP form of Darnold we saw prior to the past couple games. So I think Atlanta's defense, their pass defense, is still near the top of the league. Was number one at one point. I don't think it's number one now. I think they're going to keep it close, but I think Seattle's going to keep getting stops, and eventually it's going to lead to points. So Falcons, I would be a bit surprised if they pulled off the upset here, but wouldn't be shocked. But I'll go with Seattle 26-17. They're favored by 7. I think they'll cover that, but they also allow, some garbage time touchdowns we've seen this season, so maybe a backdoor cover. So a bit risky there if you want to bet that spread. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Yeah, classic Steelers-Ravens game. These games are always close, it feels like, every year, and they're extremely meaningful because these teams are obviously usually competing neck and neck with each other for the division lead. Right now, they're tied record-wise, and Baltimore has the tiebreaker. Neither of these teams have been playing great football, really, all season. I mean, they both have had separate win streaks. The Steelers 4-1. The Ravens, they won 5 in a row since Lamar came back. Well, they've 4 in a row, and then they won the against the Bears when Snoop Huntley started for them. But they just have not been playing great offensively. The defense has kind of been hiding that weakness that they've had offensively with Lamar and company, the offense not being as efficient. But I got exposed against Cincy last week. And then Pittsburgh, again, they were 4-1, but they just weren't looking too great. And now they're 6-6. They've only won 2 games since their 4-1 start. Neither of these teams playing great football. That's why the Bengals honestly have a chance to sum up. If they win out, they get a decent chance to steal the division. They still play Baltimore again. They split with Pittsburgh. But anyway, as far as this game, I'm going to pick the Ravens here. Even though, like I said, I don't think either of these teams are playing good football at the moment. I think Baltimore is playing better football. Defensively, I really think the Steelers are going to have a tough time moving the ball on this defense. It's been playing great for the Ravens lately. I know they allowed over 30 to the Bengals, but they held them to a bunch of field goals, and there's only so much you can do when your offense is turning it over and giving them the ball back left and right. And this Pittsburgh offense has been struggling significantly, very much so. they have really been having a tough time moving the ball. We saw against Buffalo last week, they barely attempted any passes beyond like the line of scrimmage with Rodgers and his injured wrist. So I think Baltimore's defense is going to be the reason they win the game. Pittsburgh's defense, I think they'll play a solid game. It'll be kind of another not so efficient game offensively for the Ravens, but I just trust Lamar and the Ravens to figure it out offensively and outdo an injured Rodgers and a significantly struggling Steelers offense. So I'm going to pick Baltimore here. Pittsburgh, it feels like these teams split every year. So Pittsburgh, like I said, I do think their defense will play well. Their offense, they're just going to have to overperform how I'm expecting. I could see a scenario where they do that. Everyone's down on them. Rodgers comes out and slings it left and right, and they look great. I could see that, but I think their offense is just going to have to overperform how I'm expecting to. I don't see it happening. Defense could be the reason they win. They get some sacks, turnovers, things like that. That'll obviously help. So I'll pick Baltimore 24-16. I think they'll cover that 6-point spread. I have them doing it. I have them winning by 8. But that's a bit of a large spread for Steelers and Ravens game. So I may stay away from that personally. Okay. Next game. Ooh, this should be a really good game. Colts and Jags. I thought I was going to go with the underdog here, but the Colts are favored by 1.5. Now, this is Thursday as I'm recording this. I'm sure this line is going to be switched left and right. I'm sure it'll go down to 1, maybe even half a point. Maybe even the Jaguars are favored. But I'm surprised the Colts are favored in this game on the road. If it was in Indy, I'm sure they would be favored. But I'm surprised they're favored here. The Colts have not been looking too good since that Steelers game. Even the Falcons game, the Falcons probably should have won that game. They kind of blew it in typical Falcons fashion. And the Jaguars, they obviously started off the season red hot, defense forcing a million turnovers every game. And then they kind of came back down to earth, weren't looking too great. And the past couple weeks, they've looked like a solid team. And they're back in business, winning games. They're catching the Colts at the right time. Colts, again, as I mentioned, have been struggling lately, not looking nearly as good as they were the first couple weeks of the season. They're at home, too. Indy has not won in Jacksonville since 2014, so over 10 years now, about 11 years, the last time Indy won in Jacksonville, which is absolutely insane, which I guess depending when, off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure when the last time they won Jacksonville in 2014 was, like, month wise, so it may be even closer to 12 years because obviously we're about to be in 2026 here. But anyway, that's the point. The point is the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville in ages, and they're not playing too great. The Jaguars are red hot, so there is logic right there that's just the Jags could win. However, I'm going to pick the Colts here, and again, I'm honestly very surprised that they're favored. I know I keep saying that. I'm just baffled that they're favored, honestly. Maybe not baffled, but I'm just borderline shocked they're favored here. My gut is telling me everyone's down on Indy, like I said. The Jags, everyone is high on them. I'm getting a phone call from a spam number here. I don't know. My gut's just telling me the Colts pull this one off. I think Jonathan Taylor is a big game. I think the Colts jump out to an early lead. And it's like, oh, the Colts are back, but the Jags kind of hang around, and then there's like a big play late, and it's like, oh, the Jaguars are going to come back and steal it. This is going to be come from behind win, killer for the Colts, and the Colts are going to hold on. That's how I think the game is going to play out. I don't know. I could see a last-second win for the Colts too, where it's like the Jags are up big, sort of like the Colts Chiefs a couple weeks ago, where the Colts are up big and they blow it late. I could see that in reverse here. I have a lot of different scenarios here. It's bold to pick the Colts, even though they're favored. I feel not comfortable at all. Very uncomfortable picking Indy in this game. There honestly is like more paths for the Jaguars to win this game than the Colts. They've been getting a bit more pressure on the quarterback. That's when Daniel Jones has been struggling the past couple weeks. He's obviously injured. That seems to affect his play. The Jags defense is back to forcing some turnovers. So maybe, obviously, that helped them in this game. And then the offense has been clicking. In the Colts defense has kind of dropped off a bit from how it started. So that logic there, a lot of logic suggests the Jags should win. And again, at home, haven't lost in over 10 years to the Colts at home. But I'm going to go with the Colts here. Not comfortable with it at all. These teams both have 8. No, the Jaguars only have 7. What? The Jaguars have 8 wins. All right, let me see here. Yeah, okay. Both teams are 8-4. The Jags have the tiebreaker, so they're technically leading the division now. So this game will be for the division lead. I don't know. My gut's telling me Colts. It's bold. I'm going to go with them 24-20. Listen to my gut here. Would not bet it on this game at all because it could go either way. Tough one here. Should be entertaining. Dolphins, Jets. Yeah. I mean, not the most appealing matchup on paper. I actually am kind of intrigued to see how this game plays out, though. Both teams have actually been playing better football lately. The Dolphins are on a win streak; they're heating up a bit, and the Jets, even though they're only 3-9, since they trade all their guys and looked like they were tanking, they've actually been playing decent ball, especially the defense, and the offense looks much better with Tyrod Taylor than it did with Justin Fields. And they're at home in the cold. We know the Dolphins. The big narrative with them is they can't win in the cold. So that alone is obviously going to help the Jets, I think. And again, the Jets defense, last season, the Jets probably should have swept the Dolphins, honestly. I know it's a new team, new coaching staff, things like that. The Jets, they won definitively week 18, but that game in Miami last year, they probably should have beat the Dolphins and won that game too. And again, different scenarios. The teams are different, but still worth noting. Yeah, most people are picking the Dolphins without too much hesitation from what I've seen, but it would not at all surprise me the Jets win this game. I could see Breece Hall in the run game get going. Obviously, earlier earlier this season, these teams played in Miami, and it felt like the Dolphins dominated the game, but they only won by 1 score. So, I mean, on paper, the Dolphins are the much more talented team, but from the season, it feels like these teams honestly aren't even that far apart. So, again, the Jets at home, I could see Breece Hall get going. The defense, they played the Dolphins solid for parts of the season last year, especially week 18. I know Snoop Huntley played in that game for the Miami instead of Tua. But the Jets defense, I could see them having a really good game. The Dolphins were sloppy against the Saints last week. If they play like that again, there's a very strong chance the Jets could steal this game. Could see Tyrod Taylor having a good game. But I'm going to go with Miami here. Again, I think even though both teams have been playing better, the Dolphins are just trying to make a playoff push. They get a really favorable stretch of their schedule that they've had and will have the rest of the season. Again, they were sloppy last week. The defense has been playing solid lately. Anthony Weaver's done a nice job changing some things up from the defensive standpoint. And the Jets offense, even though it's been better, I think the Dolphins defense plays a really solid game. I don't think the Jets get too much going offensively. And Miami's offense, I think it's just going to be a bit too much for the Jets. So I'll pick the Dolphins here. They're favored by 2.5. I think they'll cover, but tough spread because would not at all be surprised if the Jets win. But I would just avoid this game in general because it's two bad teams. But yeah, I'll go with Miami 24-17. Could see it going either way, though. Titans, Browns. Yep, gonna go with the Browns here. If this was in Tennessee, I would be more inclined to pick the Titans, but yeah, the Browns, both these teams have not been good this year, but the Browns defense is easily the best unit on the field in this game. The Titans offense for most of the year has been a disaster. It looked like they maybe figured some things out, changed some things against the Seahawks. They got more offense than I was expecting, and then they scored 3 points against the Jaguars. Well, and again, no disrespect to the Jaguars defense. They've been solid this year, but at home you score 3 points against the Jaguars. And I know the week prior, again, they scored a decent amount against the Seahawks. But good luck if you're only scoring 3 points at home against the Jaguars, scoring a good amount of points against this Cleveland defense on the road in Cleveland. So I think the Cleveland defense is going to carry them this game. They'll get the job done. They'll just win from their defense. The offense, I think it'll be similar to the Dolphins game where it's kind of ugly, but they put up a decent amount of points as their defense keeps getting so many stops. So I think the Titans defense, will keep them in it for a while. It'll be close. Browns don't get too much going offensively, but a couple explosive runs, maybe a couple solid pass plays from Shedeur and the wide receiver group get the Browns offense going. I just do not see how this Titans team is going to put up enough points against this Cleveland defense to win. But their defense themselves, the Titans, I do think could keep it close. Maybe the Titans special teams can help them out. We saw they got a punt return against the Seahawks. The Browns allowed 2 special teams touchdowns to the Jets 2 weeks ago. That's the main reason they lost. So special teams, defense could help the Titans win, but the offense, they're going to have to overperform, but I don't see it happening. I think Cleveland will cover that spread. I'm going to pick them 24-10 in this one. Commanders Vikings. This is a really tough one to pick. I'm a bit surprised Minnesota's favored. They're getting J.J. McCarthy back for this game. Brosmer, I didn't think he could be worse than McCarthy, but he proved me wrong. He was a complete disaster against the Seahawks. Now, it was a tough draw, so it was against Seattle's defense, but he was a complete disaster. McCarthy's obviously been horrible all year with a couple exceptions, but for the most part, he's been an absolute disaster. And the Commanders have been playing better football, especially since Dan Quinn's taken over. They probably should have beaten the Dolphins, and they very nearly beat Denver last week. So that's 2 close losses they probably should have had. Probably should have won both of those games. They're hot. Everyone's, well, not everyone, because they're still bad, but people are taking note from that Denver game. Well, they nearly beat Denver, and it feels like they're playing better. Well, obviously, they're going to beat the Vikings, who can't even complete a pass to their quarterback, right? That logic is very well valid, but I'm going to go with the Vikings here. They're at home. I think they're due for a win. The Commanders are too, but Minnesota's due for a win. I think their defense is going to be the reason they win the game. I think they'll play a really solid game. They've been playing solid lately for the season. They haven't been as good as they have been the past couple of years with Brian Flores, my old guy from the Patriots, calling the defensive plays. But I think in this game they play solid. I think the Commanders get a decent amount of offense, but I think the Commanders defense plays well. I think both units play well defensively, both teams, but Vikings defense plays a bit better, and the Vikings offense does just a bit more. I think J.J. McCarthy is probably going to have another borderline pedestrian game. The defense is going to keep them in it, and the Vikings end up pulling it off late. So that's how I think the game's going to go. Again, there's a lot of logic that's just Washington could win. They play like they did against Denver last week. They probably should win the game. The defense, I think they'll play well enough for them to win. The offense just going to have to do a bit more than I'm expecting. Tough one here. Would avoid that spread. Vikings I'm not betting on or against them the rest of the season. They've screwed me multiple times with my parlays being the last leg and they win or lose. So I'm done with them along with the Panthers and Cardinals for betting on this season. The Cardinals were the first team on the list when they blew it to the Titans. But yeah, and the Panthers screwed me last week against the Rams. But yep, would have won $300 if the Rams won. Thank you, Carolina. But that's okay. You just showed at this point. But I'll go with the Vikings 20-17 here. Could go either way. Would avoid the spread. Should be a good game. Speaking of Denver and the Raiders. I considered the upset. I almost picked the Raiders. Now, not much logic suggests the Raiders should win the game. However, Denver is overdue for a loss. They keep winning every game, even against bad teams, at the last second. You got to ask, how long are they going to be able to keep it up for? The Raiders are overdue for a win. And the offense, even though maybe not statistically, but to me, and they only scored 14 points, but it felt like they moved the ball a bit better and they looked a bit better last week with Greg Olsen calling the plays compared to Chip Kelly. And we saw the first time these teams matched up, and it was a windy game. The weather significantly affected the game. And it's a divisional game, Thursday night games, weird things happen. Divisional games, weird things happen. The Raiders nearly won. They only lost by 3. It was 10-7, ugly performance from the Broncos. They got the job done. So these teams are playing just a couple weeks later. There's been a bunch of crazy upsets this season, especially divisional games. They've been especially hard to pick this year, it feels like. So the Raiders, their defense, I honestly think their defense is going to play a solid game. I think it's going to be an ugly, harder, and 23 points for Denver. Like their offense, their offense has been operating like most of the season. The Raiders' defense has been okay for parts of the season at least. I think they play solid here. They make it harder and 23 points for Denver. The offense, maybe Brock Bowers is a big game. I thought he was going to go off against Denver the first time, but maybe the wind, you can say. Obviously, Denver's defense played a big part themselves, but maybe he has a big game here. The offense is due for a big game. And if they put up a decent amount of points against Denver, like in the 20s, that'll be the key to the Raiders pulling it off. I could see it happening. However, I can't pick it. Denver's 7.5 point favorites. I would not touch that spread. They very well could cover. Denver could just blow them out. Logically, that's probably what should happen. But I don't know. My gut's telling me it's close, and I would not, even though logically it doesn't make sense, I would not be shocked if the Raiders pull this upset off. But I'll go with Denver here. I think their defense plays well, like it has most of the season. Well, they played excellent most of the season. I think the offense, again, just simply outdoes the Raiders' offense. They get the job done. Ugly win for Denver. Could blow them out, but I'll be pulling for the Raiders as a Patriots fan. I'll go with Denver 23-16. Rams Cardinals. Yep. Obviously going to go with the Rams here. The Cardinals, they're a disaster. They're struggling. I mean, the good thing for them is most of the games they're losing, they're right there. Gannon, I think, is going to get fired at the end of the year. What are they going to do with Kyler? They're just a mess right now. Now they're playing the Rams, a pissed off Rams that they're going to be mad at how they played, how sloppy, Stafford, especially how sloppy he was with the ball. They would have beaten the Panthers without those sloppy turnovers. They scored on every drive besides the turnovers. The only thing stopping them was those turnovers. So they're going to be pissed off. They want to regain the 1 seed. They're going to be coming in determined against a struggling Cardinals team. The defense, both sides of the ball have actually been decent for the Cardinals lately, but I just think it's a bad time to play the Rams. I think it's a bad matchup for them. Going to go with the Rams here. I think both sides of the ball play well. I think it will be relatively close, maybe within like 2 scores most of the game. The Rams defense, I think, or sorry, the Cardinals defense, I think gets a couple stops to keep it close. The Cardinals offense, I don't think they're going to be doing too much in this game. If the Cardinals somehow pull off the upset in this one, um, maybe the defense can force some turnovers. Maybe Stafford sloppy with the ball. I think that was kind of a fluke, though, from Stafford being that sloppy with it. Maybe the Cardinals defense plays better than I'm expecting. The offense, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they follow the blueprint the Panthers did. Maybe not necessarily running the ball because the Cardinals haven't been able to do that all year with the injuries they've had at running back. But I don't know, maybe something in the pass game they mimic from the Panthers. They can replicate it. I don't know. It's just gonna have to be a weird upset. Rams are gonna have to be sloppy. But I'll go with the Rams here. 8.5 point spread. Again, I think they'll cover, but I may stay away from that. That's a big spread for a divisional game. But I'll go with the Rams 30-20 in this one. Chicago and Green Bay. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. Bears are red hot. They're a surprise this season. However, I'm going to pick the Packers in this matchup. On the road in Green Bay, major matchup for the division. Well, not for the division, but for the division standings at the moment. Green Bay, 2 games back, right? What do they have? 7 wins, I believe, or do they have 8 wins? Let's see here. Oh, for Christ's sake. Why can I never just find the answer? Okay, at 8. Okay, so whoever wins this game is going to be leading the division. And even though the Bears have been red hot and the Packers, really since like their 2-0 start, outside of a couple games, it just feels like even though they're winning for the most part, just they're not. The offense is a bit off. The defense has been fine. Has been great most of the year actually, but it just feels like they haven't been like an elite team. It just feels like they've been, a good team rather than an elite team. But in a high pressure situation like this at home, late afternoon game, I'm going to pick the Packers. I think the offense is a good game schematically. I think LaFleur cooks up a good game plan against this Bears defense, which it's a defense sort of like the Jags. You can move the ball on it, but they just get timely turnovers. I think the Packers going to avoid those timely turnovers, and they're going to methodically move up the field for most of the game, and they're going to put up a good amount of points. Josh Jacobs is questionable. I think he's going to play. Little bonus prediction here. I think Josh Jacobs goes off. I think he has a really good game here. So, and the Packers defense as well, I think they have a good game. I think Caleb Williams is his completion percentage issues. I think that really hurts the Bears here. So I'm going to go with Green Bay. The Bears, I could see them getting a bunch of turnover, not a bunch, but some timely turnovers here. Jordan Love, we know. I think Jordan Love's going to have a good game too in this one. That's what my gut's telling me. But we've seen Jordan Love can be sloppy and kind of careless with the ball at times. That if that happens in this game and the Bears get turnovers, that's going to be a big reason the Bears could win the game. Offensively, I get my gut is really feeling pretty strongly about what I was saying, how the Bears offense may not get too much going. I think the Packers defense was a really solid one here, but I could see maybe Swift and the run game go crazy. No one expected the Bears offense, well, mainly the run game, to be as successful as it was against Philly last week. So, if they not replicate, but if they have a great offensive game here, that'd be 2 weeks in a row. My point is they did it last week and no one was expecting it. So maybe they do it again here. Wouldn't surprise me. So turnovers, the offense, the run game clicking, that could be a big reason Chicago wins. If it's close, the Bears, we know they pull games out at the last second. That could be another reason they win. They did win in Lambeau last year. All the Packers were playing for nothing, and Malik Willis came in the game at one point, watching the majority of it. But yeah, and the Bears are obviously much worse last year than they are this year. But yeah, if it's close late, Bears defense gets turnovers. The offense could get a bit more going than I'm predicting here. That could be keys for Chicago to steal it. Packers favored by 6.5. I don't have them covering. I only have them winning by 6, but I could see them winning comfortably. It being a bit of like if the Bears lose by like 10 plus, it's gonna be like the Bears are frauds. Everyone was saying it. Now they're not getting last second wins. That'll be the conversation coming out of the game, I think. But I think the Bears are legit. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, but I think they could win a playoff game and then potentially who they play maybe make some noise after that. But we'll see. But for this game, I'll pick Green Bay 26-20. Could go either way, though. Ooh, here we go. Texans, Chiefs. I am so split on this game. I have gone so back and forth on it. However, I have picked the Texans to pull off the upset here. Now, I know that I picked the Texans. The Chiefs are going to win. They're favored by 3.5. Backs to the wall. They need to basically, not mathematically, but they realistically most likely need to win out to make the playoffs. So high pressure situation. We know the Chiefs perform well in those situations, obviously, given their resume. At home, Sunday Night Football. So that alone suggests the Chiefs should win this game. The Texans offense, it's been playing better, but in this game, I really don't think they're going to get too much going here. I think the Chiefs defense, a lot of criticism on the Chiefs defense this season. I think they have a really good game. I think they limit the Texans offense for the most part. And then offensively, my gut, a small part of it is telling me the Chiefs have a really efficient game offensively. Even though the Texans defense has been balling out, I could see the Chiefs just popping off offensively. I even could see them, even though I'm picking them to lose, I could see the Chiefs winning convincingly, and then the talk after the game is, oh boy, the Chiefs, Texans could have knocked them out. Now the Chiefs, they're going to win out. They're going to make the playoffs and probably make the Super Bowl. That could be the talk coming out of the game here. Even if they do win this game, I don't think they're going to make the Super Bowl, but who the hell knows with this team. But yeah, that could be the talk coming out of the game. So there is honestly probably more logic that suggests the Chiefs should win this game than the Texans. However, I'm going to pick Houston here. A big factor is how well their defense is playing. Like I said against Indy last week, I just can't pick against them because of how well their defense has been playing. And the offense has been moving the ball efficiently. They just keep stalling out in the red zone. It's been an issue for them all year, but they're moving the ball better than they were at the start of the year. So they're moving the ball well. The defense has been balling out. The Chiefs' offense has not nearly been the same this season, although it's been mid for 3 seasons. Their defense has carried them. Now that the defense isn't carrying them and not getting lucky plays and the refs to hand them, this is the team that they were last year. Just take away the lock-in. They're the same team. But anyway, um, Houston's defense has been balling out. They're obviously a ferocious pass rush. They sacked Josh Allen like 400 times in the Thursday game a couple weeks ago. And the Chiefs are going to be without their 2 tackles in this game. So that and their line with them has been shaky. So without those guys going up against this ferocious Houston pass rush, I think that's going to be a big reason the Texans win here. Now, I'm sure schematically the Chiefs are preparing and scheming around it, probably quick. They like to get it out quick anyway, but maybe even quicker throws from Mahomes here. The Chiefs don't run the ball nearly enough either, even when it's working. So I honestly think the Texans are just going to borderline sell out to start the pass and just not prepare as much of the run game, obviously. Um, but yeah, I'm not doing. I'm just thinking about it in my head as I'm talking, so I'm probably not doing a good job explaining it here. But going with Houston, because I think the pass rush is going to be a big factor. And I think the offense is going to, even though I don't think they're going to do too much in this game, I think it'll be a very ugly, hard-earned 21 points, even though 21 points is, most likely 3 touchdowns. I think Houston probably will get some field goals here. Again, even though I have them scoring 21, now that I guess that's contradicting this prediction, but I think Houston's going to move the ball a couple drives. I think, okay, let's reset here. I think the Chiefs defense is going to play great for the most part, but Houston, their defense is going to play great as well, and there's only going to be so many times the Chiefs defense can stop the Texans here. I think they'll have a couple of drives and they move the ball, maybe even a few in a row. I think they'll probably stall out in the red zone per usual and have to settle for field goals, but the good news is I think obviously every point in general matters in any game, but I think that's especially the case in this game with Houston's defense playing the way I expect them to and how well they've been playing. I think the Texans, they can just keep getting field goals. That's going to be a big reason they win. If the Texans can convert in the red zone, I think their chances to win the game skyrocket compared to settling for field goals. That's been Houston's Achilles heel all season, stalling out in the red zone, and they've been winning lately with that issue. So with the Chiefs not having the 2 tackles, kind of struggling offensively, they can convert in the red zone. I'm going to like their chances a lot more. And, of course, that's 4 additional points, assuming they make the extra point, then settling for 3 as well. So I'm going to pick Houston here. Also, these teams, when they played last season twice, it was kind of how I'm predicting it a bit. Houston was able to actually move the ball okay in that game. It was just long drives. They didn't put up a lot of points, but they moved it okay. Had to settle for some field goals. Their defense played well in those games, and the Chiefs' offense was better at that point than it was right now. So, and the Texans' defense is playing better right now too. So I'm going to pick Houston to pull off the upset. I know that I'm picking them. I was picking Houston, and then I was going to switch to the Chiefs, and I stayed with Houston. So I know that now that I'm staying with the Texans, the Chiefs probably are going to win the game ultimately. They're 3.5-point favorites. I actually would bet plus 3.5 for Houston because I have them obviously covering winning the game in the upset here. But if they do lose, I think there's a strong likelihood it's within a field goal. I think the Texans win, it's close. I really do not see how they win comfortably. If the Chiefs win, I think it will be very close, probably, last second win. They just hold on, something like that. But I also could see them winning sort of like the fashion they did against the Lions. Sort of the same story. At that point, the Lions were rolling going into Kansas City. The Chiefs were struggling. The Chiefs won convincingly. Could see that. But I'm going to go with Houston 21-20 here. I'll certainly be rooting for them because obviously I hate the Chiefs. So go Texans. Really entertaining game, intriguing matchup. And then the last game, the Monday Night Football game, we get the Eagles, you get the Chargers. Eagles are favored by 2.5. I'm actually surprised they're favored. So technically, I'm picking the underdog. Actually, you know what? I'm going to double check that they are underdogs here. Let me double check real quick. Um, okay. NFL, come on, DraftKings, load. Yeah, they are favored. Um, let me make okay, yeah, they are favored. The Eagles are, but I'm gonna go with the underdog Chargers here. I just don't want to overthink the X's and O's from this matchup. The Chargers are much better at home than they are on the road. They are coming off the disaster of a performance. Well, actually, well, no, just kidding. I'm just blanking for a second. I thought they played the Raiders for a second last week. I was going to say they were coming off the disaster performance against the Jaguars, but obviously that was last week. Their defense this season has been very good. I've always liked Jesse Minter from an X's and O's coaching standpoint. I'm a Michigan fan, so I've always liked Jesse Minter dating back there during his time at Michigan, obviously with Jim Harbaugh as well. Um, Chargers defense has been playing good this season. They've been injured. Obviously, the Chargers offense has been injured, mainly their running backs and tackles. But the Chargers defense has suffered injuries. They had some stretches, some individual games this season where it's looked rough. Obviously, the Jaguars game I just mentioned, for example. But for the most part, it's been good. They are night and day at home compared to on the road for the most part. And they're going up against an Eagles offense that the vibes are down. They're struggling significantly offensively. Fire Patul, his house is getting egged. The vibes, just the offense is not clicking right now, going up against a Chargers defense that's great at home. And again, from an X's and O's standpoint, I think Jesse Minter has the clear advantage over Kevin Patullo schematically. So I think the Chargers defense plays great. That's a big reason they win the game here. I do not see the Eagles offense having a lot going for it this game. So that's why I'm picking the Chargers. I think the Chargers, even though they have 23 points, I don't think it's going to be a very easy going 23 points. I think Philly's defense plays extremely well too. Pass rush is really going to cause some issues for Herbert and company, like it has most of the year with the Chargers offensive line being a disaster, especially since Joe Alt has been out. Obviously, Rashawn Slater was out, before week 1. But the Eagles' pass rush is going to cause some issues for Herbert and company. So the Eagles very well could win the game from their defense alone. We saw that their defense carried them to 2 straight victories against the Packers and Lions, or no, it was the Packers Lions. I'm trying to think. I'm I'm just trying to think of the order if it was the whole Packers or Lions first. But anyway, I think it was Packers Lions that order, but it doesn't matter. Besides the point. But yeah, the Chargers, I think it's gonna be harder than 23 points, but I think it's gonna be low scoring through most of the game. And then maybe the Chargers have back-to-back drives where they put points up on the board to extend the lead. I think again, the Chargers defense is going to get a bunch of stops, so the Eagles defense is only going to be able to hold on for too long. Although it was kind of the case again in the Packers and Lions game, they just kept holding on, and they held on long enough to win the game, even though the offense didn't do too much. So I just think the Chargers defense is really going to limit this struggling Philly offense. And the offense, the Chargers, is going to be able to take advantage of that. Just having so many possessions, I think they're just going to maybe the pass game again gets going for the Chargers. Been good most of the year. Obviously, the run game been struggling. They're getting Hampton back. Vidal's been better. I just think the Chargers offense with their defense playing the way I expect it to is going to outscore Philly here. So I think they're going to win the game, cover the spread. I would not bet it because I think the game can go either way here. I could see the Chargers winning comfortably. I think it'll be close though. Even though I'm, ripping the Eagles here, a part of my gut does kind of tell me, and Vegas clearly knows something favoring Philly on the road here. A part of my gut is telling me with how bad the vibes in the Eagles offense are right now, I could see them just randomly popping off here. Saquon going berserk, the passing game coming to life. I could see that, and I could even see Philly I don't think it'll happen, but I could see a scenario where Philly wins like comfortably. However, I'm gonna go with the Chargers here from the X's and O's standpoint rather than just guessing the Eagles offense randomly clicks it in gear. Could happen, but I'll pick the Chargers 23-17. Should be a really entertaining Monday night game now. Okay, let me double check. I got all the games. Yep. So, looks like a pretty entertaining week. A lot of entertaining matchups. Excited to see a bunch of them. Really not too many games I'm like, whatever about this week. Maybe Rams, Cardinals, Titans, Browns, Dolphins, Jets. But even those games are kind of intriguing. But yeah, looks like a very entertaining week. Last week for most fantasy leagues for the playoffs, I'm going to make the playoffs in 4 of my 5 leagues. One league, I clinched the 1 seed already. Obviously, I want to win this week, but clinched the 1 seed already, so that's good. So, especially good luck in fantasy this week, as I always say. Good luck with picks, betting, all that good stuff. But I will wrap this video up here. It'll also be nice as a Patriots fan being able to relax this week, although I'll be rooting for the Raiders again. Rooting for any team playing the Broncos to try to help us get the 1 seed at this point. I guess the Bengals too, even though I think we're going to win the division anyway. But anyway, good luck with picks, fantasy betting, as I always say. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in. Take it easy, guys, and as always, go Pats.